Simon Gompertz, thank you. Well, Steve Jones used to work for Tesco. He now teaches suppliers how to negotiate with Tesco. His company's called Focal Point. Steve, you are a classic poacher turned gamekeeper. As I said, you work for Tesco. Now you're coaching suppliers in bargaining with Tesco. What's the view from the suppliers' side of all this?
Well, I think the supply base fits into two sizes. You've got the very, very big suppliers like Unilever, which has obviously been covered ad nauseam in the press. But there's also a great big number of medium-sized suppliers who feel unable to push back. And I think partly because the Grocery Code Adjudicator isn't really doing a job for any of the supply base.
Well, she isn't here to answer that, and she believes that there's a lot of evidence that she's doing her job well. But why would it be
if you look at the YouGov survey that was carried out by the Groceries Code Adjudicator, 62% of direct suppliers said they'd experienced an issue in the past year.
Sorry, an issue with the supplier, not with the adjudicator.
Well, no, but it doesn't get as far as the adjudicator, because what actually happens is before it gets anywhere near the adjudicator, it has to go through the retailer's own process. And somebody once said it's a bit like saying you've been mugged in the street, but you've got to go and talk to the mugger's boss before you can go to the police.
OK, you mentioned the medium-sized suppliers as being the ones most at risk. We tend to think it's the small-scale suppliers. Is that not true?
Well, I don't think so, because generally the retailers tend to be a little bit more I hesitate to use the word gentle, but a little bit more understanding with smaller suppliers, and they work closer with them, because if you put small suppliers out of business, it causes a lot of bad press that they don't want. But in reality, people like Coca-Cola, Mars, they're big enough to stand up for themselves. As I said, it's this mid-range suppliers that I believe have the specific issue with the retailers.
Now, if costs rise, somebody has to bear that. Either the suppliers have to take it out of their profits, or Tesco have to take it out of their profits, or we have to pay for it when we're shopping. Where do you think it's going to fall? Who is going to pay, do you think?
Well, eventually the consumer will pay, because we've seen such large movements in sterling that these can't be absorbed. If you look at retailers are making sort of 2-3% net profit, they can't absorb a 17% reduction, and eventually it will have to be passed on to the consumer. But the pound will go the other way at some point, assuming that all the Brexit stuff dies down, and then the prices will go back in the other direction.
Steve Jones from Focal Point, thanks very much for coming on and explaining that to us.